In June 2024, Will Levis took a group of skill position players to Cabo to train. The following is a true account of what occurred.
Tajay, have you noticed anything weird about D-Hop lately?
Yes, the island is having an effect on time.
I'm pretty sure this is a peninsula.
It's happening to Ridley too. They are de-aging back to their prime.
What about Chig and Cheddarbob?
It's affecting them also. They are about to break out.
Why are they wearing full gear?
Titans are weird.
What's up, fellies? Welcome into Trashy Football, a whole new species of Tennessee Titans podcast. If your algorithm is so messed up that you found us, then you probably better just stick around for a while. I'm Trashy, and I'm joined by God's finest specimen of a North American marsupial, Possum. How the hell are you, man? Hey Trashy, I'm doing good, brother. I'm just excited to talk some tits today, man. Today we're going to be breaking down the Brian Callahan offense. Will Brian Callahan's success in Cincinnati translate here in Nashville? Can Bill Callahan finally fix our god-awful O-line? Is Will Levis the chosen one? Are his weapons too old? We'll get into all that and more. But first, if you will, let's take a look back at the Titans 2023 offense. Do we have to, man? Yes. Alright, let me go get my bark bag. Imagine, if you will, the year's 2023. The Tennessee Titans have brought in offensive coordinator Tim Pretty Boy Kelly to design the scheme for what most anticipated would be one last ride in Tennessee. For quarterback Ryan Tannehill and legendary running back Derrick Henry. This time, there was some renewed optimism as DeAndre Hopkins would join them, being the most legitimate receiving threat on the team since A.J. Brown's departure. But all hope was soon lost, because much like my Amazon package, this team arrived with a few broken pieces. Left tackle Andre Dillard somehow did the unthinkable and performed worse than Dennis Daly had a season prior. Center Aaron Brewer was undersized and often pushed around. The right side of the offensive line was an ever-rotating cast of below-average backup players, and they were all injured also. New receiver DeAndre Hopkins did his part in living up to the hype, but quarterback Ryan Tannehill proved ineffective this year at getting the ball to him due to constantly being sacked. And it appeared he showed up in New Orleans with a noodle arm. Damn. Wide receiver Traylon Burks was expected to take a big jump, but then he didn't because he was constantly injured, and when he was on the field, he pretty much dropped the ball. Ryan Tannehill would eventually get injured because, again, our god-awful offensive line. Will Levis would come in. He'd do okay at times. In fact, he had some really, really spectacular moments. But guess what? Eventually, he got injured behind our god-awful offensive line. The Titans would finish 28th overall in yards per game, 27th in scoring offense with a measly 17.9 points per game. Only 31 TDs total last season. The 29th ranked passing offense and the 17th ranked rushing offense. They would finish the season with 64 sacks allowed, tying them with the Jets for the fourth most in the league. The Panthers and the Commodores had 65. They were tied for second and third. The New York Giants somehow managed to blow everybody out of the water with 85 total sacks allowed.
Jesus
20
Christ.
more than us. How is that possible? How do they not stop the games, man? Is there no mercy rule in the NFL or nothing, dude? Shit. No, if there was, it definitely would have been implemented during that Denver-Miami game last season.
Damn,
But now that we have that horrific flashback out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the offensive coaching staff. Of course, everything starts with head coach Brian Callahan. He's coming over after spending the last 4 seasons as the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, including their trip to the Super Bowl. Now head coach Zach Taylor was the play caller in Cincy, but he has spoken on how essential Brian was to the creation and day-to-day operation of that offense. Callahan has been very straightforward when talking about his offensive vision, saying that he wants to be very pass-centric and that it will be Bengals-ish. There will be elements that he tailors specifically to suit quarterback Will Levis, but what Brian says will most set his offense apart is that his father, Bill Callahan, will be helping to coordinate the run game. Now, Bill was one of the biggest coaching steals made by the Titans this offseason. He was currently employed by the Cleveland Browns in a lateral move that they didn't have to allow the Titans to make. But they did, so good on them. Bill Callahan gets to join his son in Nashville as the offensive line coach that we desperately need. And he's a good one. He's probably the best in the league. Maybe one of the best of all time. So hopefully this guy can sort out our problems, right?
God, I hope
Now,
so.
Brian, he also brought in Nick Holes to be the offensive coordinator. Nick was the passing game coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars last season. Nick is expected to play sort of the same role that Brian did for Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, being his right-hand man and helping to implement his vision for the offense. Nick seems to be a good candidate to do this because Nick has known Brian since high school, and they coached together for a short period on the Oakland Raiders. Wide receiver coach Tyke Tolbert rounds out the group. He's got over 20 years of experience coaching wide receivers in the NFL.
Alright guys, and we're going to be taking a look at all the different position groups here and grading the starting players and those here in just a minute. But before we do, if you will, please subscribe, please like, and leave us a comment if you're enjoying this. It's really hard getting a new channel like this up off the ground. So if you enjoy it, help us out. Give us a thumbs up.
Yeah. What Trash is trying to say there is that, actually, guys, if y'all don't subscribe and you don't hit the like button, maybe leave enough comments down below, then Tennessee Titans is gonna lose a lot of games this season. Don't ask me how I know that, but that's actually true. It's a hunch, okay? So I mean,
I heard that.
I ain't got no way to prove it, but you're gonna feel really, really guilty if the Titans have a dog shit season.
Yeah.
All because you were too lazy to click the subscribe button.
It would be your fault.
I mean, just to be safe. I mean, right now.
Please.
Seriously.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. First up is Bill Callahan's totally revamped offensive line. Now, this is going to be the hardest group to project, as not a single one of these players will be lined up next to somebody they played with last year. And as we get to the right side of the ball, these positions, I believe, are still totally up for grabs.
Yeah.
The confidence level across the board is a little bit higher than it would be otherwise for this group due to Bill Callahan's oversight. Starting off at left tackle is 7th overall draft pick J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Can I just say real quick, I hate the Harbaughs. both of them. I can understand that after months of every mock draft and Titans fan predicting left tackle Joe Alt to the Titans at number 7, Harbaugh and the Chargers would select him at 5th overall. However, it has been stated that Bill Callahan's favorite tackle prospect this year was J.C. Latham. That information was out there floating from ESPN reporter Teron Davenport, who seemed to very much have his finger on the pulse of the Titans draft board. He had said that about the Titans being very high on J.C. Latham, that the Titans were not as high on wide receiver Rome Odunze as others, not to expect him to be taken in the first round, and Teron even predicted T'Vondre Sweat in the second. Dang. So if JC is Bill's guy, then I'm excited that the Titans grabbed him. It's a tall task for any rookie to step in at left tackle day one and be the starter, but that's exactly what he's going to have to do. For that reason, I've graded him as below average on the confidence scale coming into this year, and that's no way a knock on the player that we think Latham can be.
What the hell, Trashy? You couldn't even give the boy a yellow one, man? You gonna give him the little below average orange one? That's some bullshit, man.
Well, like I said, this is just a prediction of where they're going to start the season. I 100% think that JC's potential is elite, but it's going to take a while for this offensive line to gel and for him to develop. Now, next to him at left guard is the best player of last year's offensive line, left guard Peter Skoronski. Skronk dog, tits out, baby. Skoronski had a solid rookie season last year after being selected in the first round, but it was not without its struggles, up to and including ruptured organs. His tonsils exploded. No, but his appendix burst, causing him to miss a few weeks and to lose a lot of weight. Damn. But what he put on tape gives plenty of reason for optimism. And he's gained back all that weight and more. He looks huge. If he takes the expected steps forward this season, he could again be the best player on this O-line. And this time it might actually mean something. And having an NFL-sized center next to him this year should help. The Titans move on from center Aaron Brewer and bring in free agent Lloyd Cushenberry III from Denver. Cushenberry had his best season last year, but was let go as part of the "oh my god, we still have to pay Russell Wilson" fire sale in Denver. Yeah. It can't be overstated the importance of having a quality center snapping the ball to Will Levis, as the center's going to be in his ear before every snap, helping to break down what he sees in the defense. With Aaron Brewer being undersized last year, you were getting pressure straight up the middle. That's worse than pressure coming off the edge. Cushenberry looks to be a huge upgrade if he can be even just big, which he is. Then we get into the really murky waters. Currently penciled in at right guard is Daniel Brunskill. Watching the offensive line last season, Brunskill was one of the few players that you probably didn't curse at your TV screen about.
I still did.
Brunskill played about as well as anybody on the O-line last season. But again, that bar is basically laying on the floor. And Brunskill maybe peaked out at replacement starter high-end backup level. And that's fine. Most every team across the league has at least one lineman at that level. The Titans have about 6 players at that level or below, and out of those, they're going to pick 2 starters. One at right guard and one at right tackle. Brunskill's biggest competition at guard right now is Shadiq Charles, a free agent the Titans picked up from Washington. And then Dylan Radence, a former Titans second-round pick who has been stuck languishing and developmental for the past few seasons. Maybe Bill Callahan can do something with him by getting his hands on these pieces.
Maybe.
Hopefully he can find us a suitable guard out of this. But
let's hope so.
Daniel Brunskill's the best bet right now.
I'm voting Brunskill too.
Hopefully. I don't know. I currently have Leroy Watson as the right tackle.
Who the hell's Leroy Watson?
You've got MPF, but he's currently injured. He's played right tackle for us before. Wasn't
great,
particularly great, but he's injured. And then you've got the rookies from last year, Jalen Duncan and John Ojokwu, but they didn't do too great. So I currently have Leroy Watson as the starter. If you're not familiar with him, he was traded to us by the Cleveland Browns for a late draft pick.
Well,
so in my mind, that means that Bill Callahan must have looked at Leroy and said, if absolutely nothing else works out, this is a guy I can make passable as right tackle.
Let's hope so.
I'm hoping. Maybe.
Yeah.
Next up is the tight end position, and we've only graded 2 deep here, but Nick Vannett will probably be the third tight end on the roster. I've got Chig graded slightly above Josh Wiley at this moment because of what they've actually done on the field. Chig was really promising as a rookie, then struggled at the beginning of last season with a lot of drops.
Yeah, old stone hands there. I was ready to trade him for a bag of tater chips.
Towards the end of the season, he'd be able to make a few big plays and would look more like the player we expected. He would end up with a little over 500 yards on the season, enough to be the second most receiving yards on the Titans.
Damn.
Now, Josh Wiley had a really solid start last season, but ended up injured at the end of the year. A lot of reports coming out of OTAs and mandatory minicamp that seem to indicate that Wiley was really impressing. Don't be surprised if he ends up getting more snaps over Chig. Wiley's length could make him very dangerous in the red zone. And he's also a much better blocker than Chig, who is primarily a pass catcher. But 2 quality tight ends with a lot of upside. Not really sure how it's going to play out in Brian Callahan's offense. We're expecting to see a lot more 11 personnel, meaning only 1 tight end on the field. So it'll be interesting to see the snap count break down and how creative they can get moving these guys around.
I like those guys, man. Tight ends are weird dudes, but I like them.
Yeah, moving on to the running backs, a big change here for the Tennessee Titans. The departure of Derrick Henry also leads to what appears to be the Titans' first real running back by committee situation in some time. From Eddie George to CJ2K to DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, the Titans have often had a bell cow running back carrying the bulk of the load. Now, last year, Tajay Spears played second fiddle to Derrick Henry and did a great job. There were games where defenses would stack the box, and we couldn't get any traction with Derrick Henry, but Tajay would be able to break off some runs. Part of the reason was because defenses were keying in every time Derrick was on the field.
Yeah.
So Tajay likely saw lighter boxes. But it also has to do with Tajay's explosive start. Derrick, being the size that he is, took time to build up to his top speed, whereas Tajay just kind of starts there. And he's got incredible lateral quickness that allows him to cut and make people miss. With as bad as the blocking was last year, Tajay was able to overcome it. Now, obviously, Tajay didn't have anywhere near the numbers that Derrick had, but this year he's going to take on a much bigger role. Not by himself, though. Now, the addition of Tony Pollard means that the run philosophy not only changes just because it's by committee now, but by the type of back that they're pairing together. See, typically, when offenses pair together running backs, it's like CJ2K and Lindell White. It's a power back and a speed guy. But these are both speed guys. Baby. And they're both versatile pass catchers. Both had over 300 yards receiving last season. Tony Pollard rushed for 1,000 yards in what was seen as a slight down season for him. But he was fresh off of a massive leg injury in January of that year.
Right.
So I think it's reasonable to expect a slight uptick from him. And because of how versatile and similar both of these players are, there's no real tells as to what the play call is by the personnel that's in. It could be anything across the board. It's going to be real interesting. I don't know what the rush totals is going to end up for these guys because Brian Callahan's going to be pass forward, and these guys are going to be a big part of it. So it may not be just the pure rushing numbers for these guys, but you're going to see the ball in their hands a lot. And Bill Callahan being a part of designing the run offense only makes me more excited about what I think could be two really, really special players for the Titans.
Man, you know I love Tajay, dude Super Saiyan. That guy's awesome. If Pollard, I don't know nothing about Pollard, dude, but I'm excited about him too. If he's half as good as Tajay, dude, he's gonna be electric back there, brother.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
And moving on to the wide receivers, one of the most exciting parts of this offense.
Damn, dude, don't it feel good to say that? I mean, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, one of the most exciting parts of a Titans offense.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, buddy.
I'm excited about it, dude. We got
too,
receivers, plural. The Titans were able to score a big free agency victory by stealing Calvin Ridley away from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville could have reached an agreement with Ridley prior to free agency, but would have had to have given up a second-round pick to Atlanta. By letting Calvin hit free agency, they only gave up a third. But that opened up the door for other teams to talk to him. And Titans GM Rand Carthon was able to get the deal done. Smell what the Ran is cooking. Now, instantly, the narrative nationally became that the Tennessee Titans had severely overpaid for another aging receiver. Yeah, it's going to look like a steal when Calvin goes for 1,300 yards this season, though. Well, let's hope so. But already the wide receiver market has blown up since the deal. If Ridley is a wide receiver number one, and he is, then it's a steal. Here's the thing. Calvin is 29. But he hasn't had the wear and tear of a normal 29-year-old. If you look at what Calvin did last year, he came back from the suspension after 2 years off and was able to be a legitimate number one receiver still, right out the gate. This league moves so fast that there's never any guarantee that a player can come back after that amount of time off. Look at Deshaun Watson after missing that kind of time. He is yet to ever look like the same player.
Yeah.
But Calvin was put in a less than ideal situation due to Christian Kirk getting injured. The Jaguars then made the decision to play Ridley as an X receiver on a large number of snaps. An X receiver is a boundary receiver that plays on the line of scrimmage. And the traits for what you typically look for in an X receiver, those are not exactly Calvin Ridley's strengths. Because an X receiver lines up directly on the line of scrimmage. It allows defenses to play very physical press man coverage within the first 5 yards. This is why the prototypical X receiver is a larger framed player, because they can fight through the contact. DeAndre Hopkins is an X receiver. Calvin's skill set is much more typical of what you would want in a Z receiver. Calvin is extremely fast, and he's an absolutely elite route runner. When he can be utilized as a Z receiver or in the slot, you can line him up favorably and get good matchups in the backfield and get him free releases. So even though he was playing out of position last year, and it was his first season back in 2 years, and he struggled with some drops, he still proved to be a number one receiver. He was 27th in the league in receiving yards. That's top 32. That's a number one. Now he comes to Nashville. He's going to line up next to DeAndre Hopkins, who was the 21st receiver by yards last season. And DeAndre Hopkins is age 31 going into this season. Again, another reason why you'll see the Titans criticized for having old wide receivers. But DeAndre Hopkins has absolutely been a playmaker for Tennessee. Has Father Time caught up with him? No. Maybe, to some degree. He probably doesn't have the same top-end speed as peak D-Hop, but that's never really been D-Hop's game. He's thrived off of top-tier route running ability, but instead of pairing it with speed like Ridley does, Hopkins pairs it with a wingspan and ranginess that allows him to come down with the ball in any contested situation. He is that physical X receiver that you want on the outside. Trashy, I gotta say, brother, I don't think I've ever seen a receiver on the Titans that had hands like old D-Hop, man. I mean, anything near that dude, he comes down with it. It's like he's got magnets in his gloves or something, man. Yeah, his pass catching ability is unrivaled. There was some catches last year that are among the best that I've seen any Titans receiver come down with. He's the perfect receiver to line up across from Calvin, in my opinion. Nuke proved he was still a dangerous wide receiver last season, despite being the only real passing target Will Levis had. Hopefully pairing the two of them together will bring out the best in both of them. Next here is Tyler Boyd, who is coming in to be the starting slot receiver, and it's a job he is very qualified to do, as he's played this exact role in Brian Callahan's offense the last few years for the Cincinnati Bengals. He is a tall, rangy player and a big slot receiver who has been a consistent chain mover for the Cincinnati Bengals over the last few seasons. He has a great feel for finding the holes in zone coverage, so he's coming in already knowing the offense in large part and will be able to help his fellow receivers and Will Levis understand the intricacies of it. And it's a very high-end number 3 receiver.
Yeah.
And again, the criticism that you're going to see is that Boyd is 29 years old. So,
of course,
again, the age of our top 3 wide receivers is probably the oldest in the league. But for everything on this roster that is an unknown and that is a projection, it's nice to have some proven talents, especially at the wide receiver position.
Damn right.
And up next on the depth chart is Titans legend NWI.
NWI.
For life.
And one of the first moves coming out of free agency this year was the re-signing of Nick Westbrook at Kine.
NWI.
If you haven't come to love NWI at this point, then you're probably not a real Titans fan. NWI is currently on the roster right where he should be as far as depth goes. But how many times have we ended up with Nick having to step up and be wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1 even? You know, Nick is very, very qualified to be at this position on the depth chart. It's when you're dependent on NWI to try and be an actual playmaker that you're getting outside of the range of what he's capable of giving you. But for a wide receiver 4, it's really a testament to how much this wide receiver room has been overhauled. And the final receiver we'll grade here is Treylon Burks. Oh, God, here we go. I don't think we have to be harsh here, but we can say that Treylon has not lived up to the expectations of a first-round pick. And that's on him to step up to that level. But what's unfortunate is that because he was traded almost straight up for A.J. Brown, that comparison is always going to loom over top of him, and that's unfair. Last year, DeAndre Hopkins coming in, there was hope that it would take the pressure off of Treylon and allow him to develop into the number 2 role, but there would be a knee injury that would pop up in a joint practice with Minnesota, and that created issues throughout the year. And then there was the concussions that popped up once again. Man, I remember sitting there watching that Steelers game being so pissed, dude. Not cause of the play or anything like that, but it seemed like it took forever for the announcers to notice that poor Traylon is laying there unconscious on the sideline. I mean, they're just chit-chatting about everything else, and dude's laying there out cold. And that's the thing that scares me, man, that back-to-back years with vicious concussions. I mean, out cold on the field. And that hit in Philly, man, it changed the whole trajectory of that game, if not Traylon's career. Yeah, there's no way we'll ever know, but first and foremost, hoping Traylon gets a chance to compete this year without having to deal with the injuries.
Yeah.
Because he has all the physical tools to be a top receiver in this league. He's got the size, he's got the speed, but it's the route running, it's the separation, it's the skill and art of being a receiver that he has to develop. He's finally working in a legitimate NFL offense. Brian Callahan has stated multiple times that he's made it a goal of his to find a role for him. Tyke Tolbert, wide receiver coach, stated that he's got Traylon working at every position, outside and inside. If you look at the Arkansas tape, he was really used more as a gadget player. Just put him in space, get him the ball, let him run with it, and hopefully they can find a role for him in this offense to be able to contribute. There's nothing I would love to see more this year, other than a Super Bowl or maybe a Will Levis MVP. But like the third most thing I'd like to see this season would probably be a Traylon Burks breakout. Yeah, I'm rooting for him, man. I reckon. I just ain't expecting shit. And we know he's going to be competing for a spot on special teams. They've had him work as a gunner. They've had him work as a returner. I think that's extremely exciting with these new kickoff rules. Somebody with his size and speed back there. Yeah, I ain't too sure about these kickoff rules yet, man. I'm going to have to go watch some XFL to see what's up. Yeah, it's similar to the XFL kickoff. It's modified slightly, but if you go look up the XFL kickoff, you can see pretty close what it's going to look like. And finally, the last position group we're going to cover here is the player that everything is going to be hinging on this season, the quarterback. It's about damn time. Now, if you want to call any of these rankings a projection, then Will Levis is the one that there is the most projecting going on here with. I've got Will graded on the confidence scale as an above average NFL quarterback because I think he's going to perform above the median line. He's going to be in the top 15 quarterbacks. How close can he get? Can he break the top 10? Can he move further up than that? I don't know. That's all in the realm of speculation. But I do think he can be an above average starting NFL quarterback right out the gate this season. And in the rare case that the national media accidentally mentions the Titans, you'll see that they're not quite as high on Will Levis. And if you look at the stats, there's definitely concerns. Will had the worst completion percentage in the league last season. That's never a good thing. No, it's not. Again, we've talked about how much duress he was under from his offensive line and the lack of receiving talent he had around him last year. But there's another key stat to look at. Levis's average depth of target was the deepest in the NFL by a very high margin. And so part of that was that the Titans' offense struggled to create separation for receivers. There were very few plays where he was able to make an easy throw and catch. And when they were there, he missed them. Not typically the throw, but he didn't see them. And the majority of his throws ended up being deep shots down the sideline to DeAndre Hopkins. And that's going to bring down the completion percentage. And it's not to say he didn't make bad throws. He definitely made bad throws. And there were throws that were off target. There were times there was an easy throw that he missed. There's times that the protection held up, but he didn't know where to go with the ball. Yeah, not many that it held up. These are things you hope to see improve here in year two with a quarterback whispering coach like Brian Callahan and He's going to have to learn a brand new offense, but this is one that's going to be tailored around his strengths. It's going to be quarterback friendly. It's going to be designed to create easy throws. If Will can learn to operate this system, then the potential is limitless. Levis has a top 5 arm talent in the NFL today. It's dialing it in and learning when to simply move the chains instead of going for the kill shot.
Yeah, I want to say, man, that Falcons game was awesome, but it was the Thursday night game in Pittsburgh, man, that sold me, dude.
Yeah.
Watching him get mauled repeatedly with our sorry-ass O-line getting destroyed by TJ Watt and just repeatedly sacked.
Yeah,
and
it was-
still hanging in the pocket, still trying to grit out the win and making some plays, man. I mean,
He's got that possum in him, dude. He's a fighter, man. I know there's a big chip on his shoulder.
yeah, the other aspect we hope to see added back to Levis's game is the mobility. Levis suffered an ankle injury during the preseason last year, and that seemed to linger with him. He had one of the highest sack rates of any quarterback in the NFL. Part of that may have been the mobility. Part of it was holding on to the ball too long. And then, of course, it was the major factor of nobody in front of him knew how to block.
Yeah.
But Levis has mentioned in interviews that he's excited to start incorporating runs back into his game. He said this is the first time he's felt completely healthy in over 2 years since his junior year in Kentucky.
Yeah, as
And
long
if
as
he
he's
can
not
come in
helmet
and add that extra dynamic to his game like a Josh Allen, then that's going to be a huge weapon in his arsenal. He's a big dude. He's got to learn how to slide and how not to take bone-crunching hits. But I'm very excited about the prospect of him adding the run game to a larger degree than we saw last season. Next up, the Titans bring in quarterback Mason Rudolph in free agency to compete for the backup position. Now, Trashy, just making sure here, bud, how positive are we that this is a backup type situation?
Pretty
'Cause,
positive.
You said the same thing about Ryan Tannehill, dude. We was talking
Yeah.
about it that offseason, man. I said, I don't know, dude. Ryan Tannehill's coming in. That might be it for Marcus. And you said, oh, no, dude. Not Marcus. They ain't going to replace him with old Tannehill. And then,
Yeah.
just a little nervous, dude.
Yeah, crossing my fingers we don't have another repeat of that situation, but I think there's a big difference here. Marcus had a few years to prove himself at that point, and I think Mason is a great backup quarterback. Coming into the season, him and Will are actually somewhere around the same level. I don't think he has the same ceiling as Will Levis, and he certainly has had plenty of time to develop and stuff, so he is what he is.
He's taking more
But
helmets to the head,
He's a
too.
very solid veteran backup quarterback, and I'm
Solid
glad he's
kid.
on the team. But honestly, I hope we never have to see him play.
You know what really irks me, though? This is another damn season I can't wear that number 11 jersey. I mean, if Mason's in there,
Yeah.
then some shit has gone really, really bad. I mean,
Yeah.
unless we running the score up, then it's cool, I guess. But if I wear it when Will's out there, then it looks like I'm rooting for the backup to come in or something. I don't know, man. It just sucks. I should have bought a Delaney Walker. You know, the Delaney Walker jersey would never go out of style. And Malik Willis is the one player here who we don't expect to make the roster. He's the only one that received the hot doo-doo grade. It's not very nice, Trashy. It's accurate, but it's not very nice. Well, it's not meant to be a disrespect to Malik. Calling him hot doo-doo is just a humorous way of saying that he's bad at being an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, that's better.
Seems like a great person, a great teammate, but I don't think he's making the roster. I decided to include him here today because he's a third-round pick. He's a quarterback. There's going to be speculation about it, but
I think this is going to be the end of the road for Willis and the Titans. They're counting you out, 7. Yeah, they kind of are now. Say, Trashy, after Malik gets cut, man, what do you think the odds are that Will goes back to the number 7 jersey, dude? Not sure. Always expensive to swap numbers. The players are obligated to buy the remaining stock of old jerseys out there or something like that. But I think I would hold off on buying a Will Levis jersey until closer to the season, because I think that number 7 is going to be available if he wants it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, man. Maybe time to start saving up my lunch money. Yeah, well, guys, that's all the time we've got for this episode. Hopefully, by the time we go to break down the defense, there'll be a new safety signing that everybody's hoping to see. But, guys, we appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, comment,
Like and subscribe.
do stuff to help us.
Put a
this
comment
channel,
in there, please.
Don't be lazy. We need you.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks.
Peace and love.